let people get in. Okay, I think we'll get started. Hello, everybody. Welcome. Thank you for taking some time to meet with us today. My name is Carla Tennis. I'm the Director of Residence Life. Let me have Liz and Deb, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourselves as well?
Hi, folks. My name is Liz. I will be checking out the chat. So if while Carla and Deb are speaking today, you have any questions, we'll have time for questions at the end. And you will be able to turn your mics on if you would like to speak up. You're more than welcome to do so. But if you have any questions and there's some easier things to answer or some links, I will drop those links in the chat for you as well. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks, Liz.
Hi, everyone. This is Deb. I work in the dining services office, and I'm really glad to be here, and hopefully we can answer any questions that you might have in regards to dining when that comes up.
Thanks, Deb. All right, well, let's just get started. I wanted to, we don't have a long presentation at all, but want to highlight a few things tonight, and then we'll, before we open it up to Q&A, we'll want to talk a little bit about returning to campus for spring semester, because that's what we're looking forward to the most. I have a little bit of insight about that one, the testing and the new portal that you maybe have heard about today. Want to talk a little bit about move-in. I think I didn't put that on this overview, but a little bit about move-in and moving back. And then about just getting a fresh start. And in particular, I want to talk about our guest policy that we've made some adjustments to, and some food for thought about the guest policy and about life on campus in the fall and creating your social circle. And then, as Deb said, she will highlight some things about dining, and then we'll open up to Q&A. So let's just get started. So, so the spring semester return kind of does have this sequence. As you all should have received a letter from Residence Life last Thursday, we kind of outlined a process for how students are going to return from spring break. Students who are currently here, who were here during J term, have gotten notice about how they would need to get tested and meet their testing obligation for the return. But for those folks who are coming back, would need to get tested. I'm seeing that the screen went back. That's what I'm kind of hesitant about.
Apologies, Carla. Your slides weren't moving through.
Oh, okay. Are you going to try to move them through? Is that what you're doing, Liz?
Yeah, why don't you keep chatting and I'll try to get our slides up and going.
Okay, I'll just talk and the slides will come back. So what we're asking is every student to get tested first, and that can be in two ways. Either at the testing center, which is opening on Thursday, and appointments are available online to make an appointment. Or if you prefer to get a test this week at home and submit the results via our new portal, and I'll talk about that in a little bit, you can do that as well. And then once the testing is confirmed, then that's when card access for the residence halls that's been turned off during the break will come back on automatically once you get tested or you get a test confirmed. And we'll talk a little bit more about testing on one of the slides. Then the other thing I want to talk about is just move-in in general. To move back, as you get access to the halls, you're welcome to come back. If you've got tested off campus and you got approval, you can come back anytime Thursday afternoon on. Students who are moving in for the first time will need to give a call to the RA on call, and their phone number is posted at the front of all of our offices or all of our residence halls to move in. Let me finish this slide now that it's up. Hopefully everybody can see that. Each student, if you would like, whether you're moving in for the first time or just moving back, you can have a one helper, but we want to make sure everybody who's coming back is well, so has no symptoms of COVID, and to wear masks while in the residence hall. And like I said, the new students can call the RA on call to go through the check-in process. They'll meet you at the door or in the lobby. And then we are looking forward to having you back. It's been quiet around here over the break, and we're looking forward to having everybody back in the halls. Liz, can we go backwards one slide? Would you mind? So I wanted to go back to the testing a little bit and talk about that. So I think most students who are returning from fall semester know that there's a website, go.uwrf.edu/gettested. That website has pretty much everything you need to know, or at least the links to where you need to make an appointment, to complete an online screening. It's best if you do the online screening within 48 hours of your appointment, of your test. And then what's new is this portal. And in the Falcon Weekly today, there was some notice about the portal as well. But if you haven't logged in yet, once you do, you'll see that it'll show your testing obligations. And this semester, residence hall students need to get tested once a week. And while that's a little more often than we did in the fall semester, it's a UW system policy that you do it once a week. And I hope that it actually will be better. And I mean better because you can schedule all of your tests for the semester up until, I think the schedule goes until April, I believe. And then it'll be extended after that. But you could schedule right now for all of your tests up to that point. And you could probably do it like every week at the same time if that's helpful. You don't have to decide to know, oh, did I get tested? Am I in the window or not? You just got to get tested every week. The testing center is open Monday through Friday. Once school starts this weekend, it will be open as people are coming back, but otherwise it'll be Monday through Friday. And in the portal, besides knowing what your obligation is, it'll show you your past tests. It'll show you your card access. So if you are, if your card access is off because you haven't gotten that first test, it'll show that. And then it also has a place for you to chat. And when it says chat, it doesn't mean chat like sometimes we do, like, try to see somebody and chat with them whenever, 24/7. It means really it's to submit questions on various topics, and those questions will be answered based on the schedule of the area that's responding to them. And it shows it in the chat what that means. So I just want to be clear that there's not going to be someone on the other line to answer questions 24/7. But it does give you a place to ask your questions. So if there's more questions about testing, we can answer those at the end or put them in the chat, in this chat. Let's see, let's go to the next slide, Liz. And then we'll go to the next one. So I want to talk about a fresh start. We won't get this scene of wheat for a long time, but it was the best one I had today. But what do we mean by a fresh start? I think we learned a lot. And when I say we, I don't mean just staff and faculty, but students alike. I think we all learned a lot from fall semester. We got a feel for what fall semester or what it could be like to be on campus and you know, the things that we need to do to keep ourselves safe from COVID. Wearing a mask, you know, the social distancing, the not, you know, being in large groups, those sorts of things. And I really want to compliment students who did all of that, made those adjustments and those changes. But we've also learned a lot, and we've implemented a lot of resources and processes where we know and understand kind of how COVID is working and how it will impact our residence hall community and our campus community. And what I want to say is that I hope that when you come back, if you're not back already, that you really give the campus a fresh start and you give yourself a fresh start in terms of what it's going to be like this spring. I think it'll be very different this spring, a different feel on campus. There will be more activities in the residence halls, still some virtual, because we know that there's some students who still prefer to be involved, but not maybe as face-to-face, but others really want to do some face-to-face things. I know campus programming is thinking that way. They too have to serve students not only who are physically here on campus, but also who are at home. But we are looking at more opportunities for you to come together, especially in the winter time when hanging out outside isn't okay. I think you'll also see that in campus recreation. Doesn't mean the rules have all changed, like we don't have to wear a mask or distance, but we can do that in ways and still be safe and still be social. And I hope that you look forward to that. Next slide, we'll talk about the guest policy. So we hear you. We know that the guest policy that we implemented last fall was tough. It really did take away an opportunity to socialize with other people that you normally in a residence hall, that's what we're about. And it was tough to put that policy in place. It was difficult. I know our staff, our RAs and our hall directors, you know, really, they did what they needed to do, but they also didn't feel good to do that, to enforce this policy that you couldn't have guests in your room. But they knew it was the right thing to do. And we really did, while we had cases on our campus this fall, when you look at the data about cases compared to even the general public, our campus was fairly, did very well. And comparatively, our cases were quite low compared to the general public. So we feel good about that. But with the new things that we put in place, like the regular testing, like the fact that students do kind of know what the practices are and are practicing them, like wearing masks, we feel like we can revise the guest policy. So what we're going to allow is for students, for you as a resident, to have other residents from your own hall in your room. You can have one person at a time as long as you two are in the room. So if you have a roommate, each of you could have your own guest. But if you live alone, you can only have one person, a guest in your room. And if your roommate is gone, you can still only have one guest. You can't have two people to make up for your roommate or their guests. But you can have somebody in your room if you want to do that. There's a couple parameters that we want. We want to make sure anybody that you have in your room and yourselves included are not having symptoms. That's just a safety piece that we ask you to practice. We also are going to ask roommates and suite mates to complete a new roommate and suite mate agreement. And that'll give all of you a chance to talk to each other about the guests in particular, as well as anything else you want to revisit in terms of being roommates. We also are going to ask that every residence hall that has this policy in place and wants to keep it, that we have compliance with the weekly testing. And so we put a standard at 80%, which is quite frankly, we met 80% and much more in every hall in fall. So I don't think this will be a difficult one for us to reach, but we want to make sure and monitor that we are all getting our tests on a regular basis. And then as far as face coverings are concerned, we strongly encourage that they be worn in the room when the guests are present. You know, if you and your roommate are in the room, you're not required to do that. We're not going to be checking up on you on the face coverings, but we really encourage that to be the case. It's just one more safety precaution that you would have. Obviously, the staff who work in the halls, or if someone has a personal care assistant, and there's some variations to the guest policy, but we're going to hold students accountable to this. Not only are you accountable for the guests in your room, but also if you are in a hall that you're not supposed to be in, we would hold you accountable to this guest policy as well. So happy to answer questions about that at the end as well if you have some, but I think it'll help, and I hope it's something that you will find to be a positive move in a positive direction. Next slide, Liz, please. So with that, I think here's one of the things that I would like you to really think about. And this was talked about a little bit last semester. Maybe you heard about people creating their pod or their group or whatever it might be. I called it a social circle. But really want you to think about, besides the conversation with your roommate or your suite mates, an open and honest conversation, I hope that you give some thought to the people that you do hang out with, whether it's a guest in your room or whether it's a group of people that you're going to go to the University Center with and hang out at the Falcon's Nest or whatever it might be, or eat with. You know, first of all, ask yourself, who do you trust with your own safety, and who trusts you? Those are the people you want in your social circle. Keep it small. I think be willing, number 3, is to, you know, establish among yourselves your safety standards. Have a conversation with each other about what your standards are, because everybody has kind of handled this a little differently. You know, some are kind of going back and forth home and maybe don't adhere to the mask policy as much as you do on campus, or maybe some folks are hanging out in larger groups. But what are the standards you're going to have that keep you safe and that keep your friends safe? And just make a commitment to each other that that's what you're going to do. And then be willing to change course. Maybe you decide some things with your social circle, and maybe things aren't quite what you're comfortable with anymore, or things have changed. Be willing to adjust those as well. But the point here is just, I really encourage you to really think about the folks that you're hanging out with, and have those conversations and feel comfortable doing that. I think that will really make being together and being able to do things together a lot easier this semester. Next slide, Liz, please. I think Deb has a couple slides.
So I just wanted to thank everyone that wearing of your face coverings and using the hand sanitizing stations and keeping your physical distance from others when you're in the dining facilities is greatly appreciated. As Carla mentioned, we were very successful at being able to minimize the amount of transmission on campus compared to other schools. And so in the dining facilities especially, we're really very grateful to you all. Just wanted to make sure that everybody's aware of the meal plan starting this Thursday. And it ends on May 6th. And as you know, there's no spring break. So we don't, we don't serve food during spring break, but it's a continuous meal plan through the whole time. So just wanted to make sure people were aware of that. And then also, I sure hope that everyone uses the UWRF Get app. If you're not familiar with this tool, and I do run across an awful lot of students that don't use it. If you're on the weekly plans, it's really handy so that you know how many meals you've used for the week, and it also shows you how many dining dollars you've used and where you use them. So please, if you have the Get app, tell your friends about it just to make sure that they're on it, because I just hate for people not to be able to get all of the value for their meal plan that they have paid for. And then also, um, we have a more seating available in the University Center, we in different locations. And I just wanted to encourage folks, please don't rearrange your tables and chairs so that you can get a big group of you together and eat. The reason that the seating is set up the way it is to try to provide the necessary safety spaces so that people can eat and take their face coverings off. So just wanted to ask folks to kind of keep that in mind. It's pretty fun to be able to do that, but we ask for your cooperation. Um, if you have questions about your meal plan or ready to go questions or anything related to the meal plan itself, please contact me. I am the only person in the dining office. So when you email me, I'll be the one that gets to answer your question. So please email dining@uwrf.edu. If you have dietary questions or specific things related to something that you're concerned about from a nutrition standpoint, you certainly still can contact me at Dining, and I will just forward that message to our registered dietitian nutritionist at Chartwells. But I have, if you can contact Chartwells direct, it's just a little faster. And I also have the phone number for our registered dietitian nutritionist there on the slide. Next slide, please. One thing I want to bring to your attention is the Ready to Go containers are the green plastic sanitized reusable clamshell containers. Those are returnable. They're not disposable. And we charge you for them when you don't return them. And you may not be aware of that because we were kind of lenient with that last fall because, to be honest with you, we know that you all had other things on your mind, right? But it's super, super important that you must return the ready to go containers before you can eat in Riverside Commons again. This semester, when you go up to Riverside Commons, I want you to be aware that you're going to scan your ID card 3 times, okay? If you have your used ready to go container under your arm, you'll scan your ID card once, which checks the used container back in. You'll deposit your used container in the bin by the cashier station. You'll scan your ID card, which checks out a new container to you. And then you scan your card one more time. That actually takes one of your meal plans off. So I want you to be aware of that process. Like I said, we didn't do a good job of keeping track of any of that for fall, just because we wanted to try to just survive. Um, so I really hope that that process makes sense once you get the hang of it. And as usual, if you do forget your ready to go container in your room and you still want to eat, all of the locations are offering a transfer location. So Freddy's C-Store, Einstein's, Herbert's and Gerbert's, those locations all offer a transfer meal. So you would have to do a transfer meal for that meal period unless you trekked all the way back to your residence hall room to get your used to go container. And we will be charging $10 per container each time you forget your container if you choose to continue to eat in Riverside Commons. So next slide. Your turn, Carla.
Okay, thank you, Deb. Appreciate it. Just a couple more things, and then we're going to turn it over to questions and answers. So just the spring semester schedule. As I said earlier, the 21st is when students can start to return to the residence halls, and then to the testing center, the residence halls, and then the dining center will be open. January 25th is when classes begin. And then final exams have been moved up and May 3rd to the 6th. So what that means is the residence halls will close at 10 o'clock the following morning when final exams are complete. So just want to make sure that, I know some students have asked that question based on the fact that spring break will not exist and we will still be continuously in classes for the whole semester. So just want to let you know a little bit about those dates. And then I think we have one more slide that some of you about fall 2021 and here's what I can say about fall. I think some of you are thinking about it and we are definitely thinking about it. It's quite a ways away. September is quite a ways away from January, but we do a lot of planning in the spring semester for fall semester. You register for classes, you sign up for your room. So we recognize that. And so I want you to know that as a campus, we're having conversations about fall. We are tracking what we think fall will be like. And obviously vaccinations are high on all of our minds. And so a lot of it will depend upon kind of where we are in general as a public health status. But we're hoping that by sometime in early March, we'll be able to have a little bit more information and to be able to make a more educated decision about what fall would look like and what you can expect. Because I know that students don't want to commit to something that's maybe not, is so unknown. And so we want to make sure that we provide get as much information and provide as much information. And so I think starting in March, you'll start to hear things about classes and you'll hear things about what fall will be like in the residence halls and then just in campus in general as well. So just stay tuned and know that we're thinking about it and want to make some good decisions for us in the fall. Our hope and our goal is that we will have a campus community like we know it to be, with students living on campus and classes in the classrooms. That really is our hope because we are a residential campus and we want to get back to that point. But we just also need to know what their status is as from a health standpoint. So stay tuned for that. So I think that's all the kind of talking points we have, and I appreciate your patience in hearing us, and hopefully some of that resonated with you and the questions you have. But we'll now turn it over to questions. I don't know, Liz, do you want to kind of moderate or?
Yeah.
That's really helpful, I think.
Yeah, we have a good question from Sierra. Sierra wants to know, can you return your ready to go container right after you finish eating?
That's a great question, and we are in the process of setting that up. We've got some folks in Dotson and Diting that are setting up a little location. You might be familiar in Riverside Commons where you get your beverages and your desserts that kind of like last stop before you exit the facility. We are creating a station, a check-in station for you. So we hope that what I'm confused about really is the line situation of how that's going to work, because we want to be able to spread people out in that line to make sure that as you're checking things in, we don't cross-pollinate everybody. So we do plan for you to be able to check back in your container after you've eaten, if you stay in the university center and eat and then want to get rid of it so you don't have to carry it around. So that's what our plan is. Wish us luck.
Thank you, Deb. Hannah has a good question. Hannah wants to know, if we choose to get tested on campus, how long will it take for our student ID to turn back on?
That's a really good question. So how it worked last semester, we made some modifications. So last semester, when you went to the testing center, you had to check in, right? And as soon as you checked in, that generated an email to somebody in DOTS, and they each manually turned the card access back on. This semester, we figured out a way to get the check-in process at the testing center and the card access to talk to each other. So it should be an automatic as soon as you check into the testing center, and we're going to assume that you're going to finish the process, your card access should be turned back on. So by the time you're finished with your test, you should be able to go back to your hall and you should have access.
Oh, Natalie would like to raise her hand. Natalie, feel free to turn your mic on.
Hi there. Thank you all for holding this town hall. I really appreciate it. As a planner, it feels nice coming into the semester, kind of having a handle on what policies and what things are going to look like. That being said, I like to plan ahead, and I know obviously fall's really far ways away. Spring, even spring feels a really long away considering, we all live here in Wisconsin in the Midwest. But I was wondering if there were any plans or any ideas of what summer would look like in River Falls. Last year, I applied to be a summer programming assistant with Residence Life and working with summer camps, and I was super excited about that opportunity. But obviously, COVID kind of shut us all down. And as I'm looking forward towards the summer and figuring out about internships or jobs, would a campus opportunity be available to me? Do you have any idea about what that would look like?
That's a really good question, Natalie. So I'm glad you asked it. We are having discussions also about summer. What I can tell you, and Liz and I have had the conversation because she's the one who oversees or supervises the summer assistants. Our plan is to not hire summer assistants again this summer, which is a bummer for you, I'm sure. Okay. And that's because we may have some summer camps and conferences, but we don't know yet. And if we do, we're kind of under the assumption that they will be fairly light in number. And so we're trying to manage our resources and manage that. We did provide housing to students who needed housing last summer. And it is our intent to provide housing for students who want to be here or need to be here. As far as the campus, the broader campus, I can't say for sure that there will be opportunities on campus, but I can say that I think there could be. I don't know what the status will be with campus recreation or any of the other departments on campus that normally hire students. But I think that's still to come. But it's a good question, and it's good for us to think about how we communicate that to students. So thanks for asking that question.
Yeah, thank you. I'm bummed personally because I was really hoping for that opportunity, but I totally understand, and that makes a lot of sense. So thank you for letting me know so I can start putting together a summer plan. So thank you.
Thanks, Natalie.
Great, thank you, Natalie. Another good question. Kaylee was checking out the COVID testing website. And on that website, it now mentions something about mouth swabbing for tests. Are we completely switching to saliva tests?
Kaylee, that's a really good question. I'm going to answer it in that I don't 100% know, because we hire a testing company, and so and it depends upon the tests that we have. I do know that we have discussed the mouth swabbing testing process, but what I don't know is if that is for the antigen test, which is kind of the first quick test that students typically get, or if that's the PCR version of the test. So that's what I don't have the answer to. I'm not sure if anybody else here, Liz or Martin or Deb, know that answer.
I'm on the website now because I was in a meeting where we talked about the saliva testing. It does say that we'll use saliva-based PCR testing. And from what I heard and understanding too, Kaylee, that our situation is always fluid and you never know what's going to, what tests we might be using or what might be available to us. But in a meeting I was in earlier today, it did sound although like we would be using saliva-based PCR testing for maybe a few weeks at the beginning of the year?
It's a good question.
There's no other questions in the chat right now. So folks, if you're wondering things, you have good questions, don't hesitate to ask. Carla, I noticed that a popular question in our email inbox was how, and I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I'll ask you, was how do I submit a campus testing exclusion form? Where is that? Where did that go? Are things different now? How do I submit that exclusion form? Because I was tested in my hometown.
Oh, that's a really good question. So as I mentioned earlier, that on the testing web page, the one that the Go to Get Tested web page, where it talks about getting an appointment and that sort of thing, it also talks about the portal. And then also in today's week, Falcon Weekly, it talked about the portal. So once you get into the portal, and everybody has an access, you have to use your ID number to get in. There's under the testing obligations, there's a place there that where you can request an exception, and there's several exceptions, and the one of the typical exceptions is exactly what you mentioned, Liz, if I got tested somewhere else, and so you can submit via that link under the obligations, and then the exception. Another thing that is under there that I think will be helpful to some students is another exception that students can request is when you're going to be gone. So sometimes we've had students who, for whatever reason, have been home for a week, and we keep bugging you, right? We keep sending you emails. You got to get tested. You didn't get tested. Go get tested. And those emails will still come this semester as reminders and to make sure that we're meeting that. But if you go home, you can submit an exception request that says, I'm not going to be here from this period to this period. And then that will trigger those reminders to kind of stop. But once you return, that obligation to get tested weekly will come back right away. So that's another thing that you'll find under the testing obligations tab in the portal. Thanks for that question, Liz. I think hopefully that's helpful.
Absolutely, thank you. No other questions have come in, so if there's anything that you or Deb would like to share that's been on your mind as we think about beginning this new semester. Even maybe important upcoming deadlines or things that students may want to be thinking about, or how to be thoughtful about how much stuff they may bring back with them for this spring semester, because spring does tend to go fast.
Did you have something, Deb?
Yeah, thanks, Liz. Just wanted students to be aware that you are able to change your meal plan. Let's say that you're on the 14 weekly meal plan and that wasn't enough meals for you and you wanted to up it to the 19, or the other direction, or if you want the 120 block plan, if you want fewer meals. You can change your meal plan using the meal plan change form found on the dining website up until midnight, Friday, January 29th.
Mm-hmm.
After that point, then my hands are tied. I really can't change a meal plan unless, of course, the student does withdraw entirely from the university. Then, of course, it would be prorated. But yeah, that's probably the biggest deadline that's coming up right now in the dining area.
I think for me, Liz, one of the things that, thanks for the prompt. I think one of the things that I would want to just let you all know is that we will continue to have an isolation residence hall. And so I think one of the things that, and I don't know who's here that may or may not have tested positive for COVID or had an experience being a close contact and had to go to quarantine. But what I would want to say about that is to know that could still happen. to you or to your roommate. And what we want to do is to reiterate that we learned a lot fall about how to do this, but I do think that we have a strong process and many team members that are helping us manage when students do have positive cases or are a close contact or even an intermediate contact, which means you live on a floor in a hall where there are maybe, 2 or 3 positive cases coming, and we want to monitor that community closer. So we do have processes in place, and we do have Stratton Hall as the isolation hall. The quarantine space is still in an off-campus hotel in the Best Western. And what I want to do is just reiterate to you that that could happen, and that we'll do our best to make sure that that's a positive experience for students, that you can still attend class if you're well enough, that you'll get the meals that you need, that there are contact tracers and case managers to check in on you and make sure you're doing okay, that it doesn't have to be a scary situation. I don't wish anybody to get COVID, but if it happens, and it has happened, we are prepared to work with you and help you through that. And so I just want to reiterate that. Just to be ready for it, I think we've talked a lot in our colleague groups that, just have a bag ready if you did end up testing positive. And we'll have folks who will work with you on that.
Thank you. I had another question come in, and it looks like it might be translating over to this chat as well. Do you expect there to be single rooms available? And by single rooms, we mean traditional double room, but pay the extra price to have it as a single. Student feels like it would be easier to have a single room when taking hybrid classes. So do we project that single rooms will be available? And it sounds like this spring.
Yeah, if you're asking for this spring, we did offer single rooms to folks who were, so several students before the break who we knew were going to be alone in a room, and you could choose to keep that room as a single. But once school starts, we know that there will be some of you who are in that situation, and you also are interested in a single room. So once we open and we have everybody in and settled and checked in, the hall directors will be able to manage the occupancy in their hall. And I think you would just need to talk with your hall director about your interest in having a single room. If you're in a double room, that would probably mean you'd need to move to a space with, within the hall. Or if you had a preference for a hall change, we could talk about that. But you might have to move to where there is a space. But we definitely will entertain requests for single rooms as we have space available to do that.
Thank you. That was a very good question. I was scanning some other things, Carla. I know you chatted about chatting with your hall director if you were looking for a room change. Does that apply to room changes as well with this guest policy? Maybe I want to talk to a hall director about moving to another building, so that way I could live in the same building as my friend. And I apologize if you spoke to that earlier, but is that a possibility?
Yes. Yep. If you do have an interest in moving to another hall, first talk to your own hall director about that, and then they will facilitate a process of looking for spaces that might be available to you in the hall that you're in, and work collaboratively with the hall director in that building to know if that's a possibility to make a transition as well. Liz, I'm wondering if there isn't another question. I wonder if you might want to talk a little bit about hall council. I didn't mention that.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to. So I want to invite those of you who are living on campus this spring to get involved in Hall Council, especially if you're looking to maybe meet some more folks or host events in the hall over the course of this spring. Hall Council is a group of student leaders within the building that will plan 3 events over the course of the spring semester for their hall communities, one in February, March, and April, all within COVID safety guidelines. So for those of you who've maybe lived on campus before and you've gone to a big Halloween party in the basement, which these days we wouldn't do to be COVID safe, we'll be within those guidelines where people will be masked and distanced, and we won't exceed those occupancy limits. So it'll be a little bit different, but that will be available to students as well. Your hall directors should have emailed you today, and if they haven't today, they will soon, about ways to get involved. So through Hall Council, there's a form you can fill out online to let them know that you're interested, and they'll be hosting a meeting. Your hall directors will be hosting a meeting at the very beginning of the semester, kind of talking you through about Hall Council and getting you involved, so you can meet some new folks, plan and carry out some events, as well as just get to know those people and get involved with our Residence Hall Association, which is also kind of our mother Hall Council as well. And Natalie, thanks for the shout out in the chat. I'm glad that you've enjoyed your Hall Council, and a great way to get connected. So maybe if you're looking back at your spring experience and you wish that maybe you would have met some more people, getting involved in Hall Council is a great low risk way to do that. Natalie has a good question here. Natalie lives in South Forks and does not have a meal plan. If sent to alternative housing due to COVID, would I be responsible for my own meals, or how would that work?
Thanks for that question. Because you live in South Fork Suites, you're not required to be on a meal plan, but you certainly can choose to be on a meal plan. And because you live in South Fork, you can select from the 1914 120 block plan or even the 60 block plan. And many students that live in South Fork, because you have your kitchen facilities there, use the 60 block plan because they still like the convenience of it averages out to about 4 meals per week during the semester. So it's a pretty handy little plan to have for those folks that live in South Fork Suites. Again, you just go to the meal plan website. There's a meal plan sign up and change form there. You would click the meal plan sign up and change form. And then you'll get an email from me once I set you up. Does that answer your question?
I think the question is more about, I live in South Fork, I don't have a meal plan, but what happens if I'm placed in quarantine and isolation housing because I have a positive COVID test and I can't go out to the grocery stores? How can I work to get food in that moment, and what maybe is the financial commitment to it?
Oh, thank you so much for clarifying for that. I'm sorry that my brain went to the wrong spot. Yes, actually, students that do not have a meal plan are given meals in their isolation and quarantine location. So that includes both the on-campus location if they're in isolation or the quarantine location, which is off campus. It is automatically assumed that you will be getting those meals, and it's 3 meals a day plus 2 snacks. It's delivered twice per day. So you get your lunch and dinner. And excuse me, you get your dinner and your breakfast one day for one delivery, and then you get your lunch with your snacks the second delivery. And it is $8 per day per person if you are not on the meal plan. And it actually costs us more than that, but we pay for part of that, even though you're not on a meal plan.
And Deb, clarify if I'm wrong, that would get billed to their university account, is that right?
Yes, we calculate how many days you were in isolation and received the meals, and then that would show up on your ESIS account, and it would actually be labeled as the isolation quarantine meals that you received. Students that basically live off campus actually, and if they test positive and use our quarantine and isolation, also can participate in that, and we charge them also through their ESIS account.
Thanks, Deb.
Yep. Thanks for the question, and thanks for the clarification.
That's good to know. Yeah, I think we want to cover the costs, but we definitely don't want to make isolation and quarantine a burden, especially for, residence hall students who are living on campus. There's no charge for the housing either. So if you have a meal plan and you're living on campus, there's no charge to go to isolation nor to quarantine. So even though you're in a hotel, um, we're not charging you to live in the hotel. It's only if you're an off-campus student, and there's a very nominal charge for off-campus students as well. But the primary goal is to make sure that we get students to where they need to be so you can be well, and that our communities can stay well. And not necessarily have to go home. Some students do choose to go home, but I just want to reiterate that that's not the only option, and that we have, I think, good options on campus and good systems in place.
Absolutely. Thank you, Carla. We have about 10 minutes, but it kind of feels like we are winding down. So I'm going to leave it up to the two of you. If we want to hang on for 10 minutes, or if you guys kind of want to wrap up, whatever you want to chat about for the next 10 minutes.
I don't have much more to add. I'll stick around as long as people are still tuned in. But I just really want to thank you all for being here and asking the questions, and what this does is it also benefits students who couldn't be here but want to tune into the recording. So I really appreciate just the participation in the dialogue, because you're asking questions that I'm sure other students want to know as well, and just really appreciate the participation. I can't tell you how excited I think I can speak for the others in residence life that we are excited about spring semester. We want to have a good semester. Academically, we want our students to do well, but also we want to build those communities that I think was challenging for us in the fall. And we want to help everybody who's here, especially to really have a positive experience and also a safe experience. And I think we have the tools and the knowledge to do that. And it's a team effort on behalf of not only our staff, but also all of us, all of our students and residents. And you've shown that you can do that. And we're just going to trust that we can all do that together. So thank you in advance for what I believe will be a good semester.